This is the intertwine tool in Adobe Illustrator. This is a fantastic way to thread objects through other objects without having to deal with any of the weirdness around duplicating shapes and then erasing parts of them to give the appearance of intertwine. So let's get started. But first, if you want more tutorials like this, or if you have any ideas for more tutorials, feel free to leave a comment below, or you can subscribe to be notified of new videos. So over here, I've just got some text and I've typed it out, I've outlined it, and then I've adjusted its positioning and merged the letters together a little bit to give it a bit of a tighter tracking. And then I've also played with the baseline a bit as well. And then we've also got this ribbon that we're going to thread through it. This is quite a complex shape, and I chose this because I wanted to show you guys the full potential of the intertwine tool, as well as some of its limitations that it can have when it comes to complex objects. So to do the intertwine tool, it's super easy. We're just going to select all of this. Then we're going to go Object, Intertwine, and Make. Now it doesn't look like anything has happened, but if I hover my cursor over this, we can see that parts of it will highlight and I can start moving things around a bit. So if I just click here, it's going to pop that ribbon behind the N. If I click over here, it's going to pop it behind all of these letters and then over the T. And I can put that behind the T as well if I want to. I can just click to reveal that and again to not. I could have the T in front of the W a bit if I want to. I can pop that through the N. And then we'll also do some basic, let's pop that T over. So I've made some adjustments to it. This is identical to the example I showed before, just having some fun with it. But let's get into some of the weirdness. So I'm not experiencing a ton here at this stage, but sometimes with complex shapes, it can, get a little muddled around the edges of shapes. It might be unsure where some shapes overlap and some shapes don't. And then also sometimes if it's not identifying something properly, or if it's not just working the way you want it to, instead of clicking, we can actually drag our cursor. And this is where some of the true weirdness starts happening. So that didn't do anything. Let's try a different part of it. Let's try here. There we go. So this part here appears to just be a visual bug. I'm not too sure why that is, but you can see here that it's really struggled with that E shape. And if we did it around the W, it's going to have some trouble with the W as well, and just not identifying those correctly. Now this is fixable, of course. We can just go back to clicking and we can manipulate that shape a bit more, but it's always good to be aware of what the limitations of a tool are, as opposed to just what the good things it can do. So that is our intertwined shape. If we go back to the selection tool, that's what it's looking like. It's just like acting like a group now. And for those of you who might be on a bit of a slower computer, it could be a bit heavy. For mine, we're doing fine so far. My Macbook is not the highest spec, but it is pretty impressive for how low the specs are. To edit our intertwine, it's super easy. We can just select it, and in the properties panel, we can either release it, which will stop it from being the intertwine. It'll just go back to normal shapes like that. Or we can edit it, and that will bring us right back into that interface where we can select parts of it to thread through others. We can also go Object, Intertwine, and we have Release and Edit there as well. And if you don't have the Properties panel, of course, you can always go Window and then find Properties. We can also expand our intertwine. Now, this is going to result in a lot of weirdness, but we can select our object and go Object and find Expand. Now what this does is it essentially bakes the appearance that we've made into the vectors themselves. So if we click that, it will no longer be editable. So Expand, I'll click OK. And so it looks exactly the same, and right now it's a group, so we can ungroup that using the shortcut Command-Shift-G or Control-Shift-G if you're on Windows. And then if we start to pull our shapes away, you can see we've got groups within groups as well. If you're on the 2025 version of Illustrator or later, you can go Object, Ungroup All, or there's a shortcut for that. But you can see we have a lot of shapes are cut out of other shapes. We've got lots of masks in here. And if I go into outline mode, so Command Y or Control Y, you can see we've got some bounding boxes here for the masks, and just various things. It's very messy. So I don't recommend the intertwine tool for anything that's going to be like remain intertwined, and it shouldn't be in the final result. So for example, if you have an intertwine and then you're exporting as an SVG to use somewhere on the web, I don't recommend that because, you know, it's probably not going to render correctly. Different things are going to have trouble reading it. I would recommend expanding that first. Same if you wanted to do something like send it to someone to be an embroidered file. If it's part of a logo, you always want to make sure it's expanded, and you also always want to make sure that those overlapping paths, those masks, those groups, that's all cleaned up so that you have the fewest amount of paths possible. But that is it for this tutorial. That's how you use the intertwine tool. And if you liked that video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon.